Dayna Martin is an author and peaceful parenting advocate, spreading the message of freedom and children's rights. Author of the books Radical Unschooling, A Revolution Has Begun, and Sexy Birth. She's been featured on the Dr. Phil Show, Nightline, 60 Minutes, The Jeff Probst Show, and most recently, ABC's hit show, Wife Swap. Her articles, videos, and TV appearances have helped thousands of families on their path to live with more freedom, peace, and joy. We hear words like rebellion and chalk it up to normalcy. But what if there was nothing to rebel against? What if we lived with the same respect for our children that we demand they have for us? What if we could recognize that punishments model injustice, and that through using power to control another person, we are teaching them to do the same? It is through loving, kindness, and understanding that children learn love and peace, and in turn will reflect this back on the world. Respecting children's rights and freedoms is a revolutionary approach to parenting and education. This is a parenting philosophy on the leading edge of new thought, yet it is rooted in instinctual wisdom. Our culture needs to realize that living with respect and freedom with our children is the most responsible way to create a peaceful world.
Hello, good evening, everybody. This is Dayna Martin. Thank you for tuning in to Try This at Home. I want to give a shout out to the band Katie's Got Guts for creating my intro. I was contacted by them after my son Devin and I appeared on the Jeff Probst Show last year. They're adult men who have been in a band for several years, but the interesting thing was that they were all homeschooled. So they were really inspired by the show and the philosophy of unschooling and became advocates for promoting my work. They actually came and performed at two of the conferences that I hosted. So they are awesome. They have some awesome videos. Check them out. Katie's Got Guts, and support their work as well. Okay. Last week I discussed advocating in the media, and I shared a lot about the inside personal journey that I've gone on with that. I received a lot of great feedback based on sharing that information. We also talked about food freedom. And again, I got several comments just thanking me for sharing that kind of information, because there's so much to this philosophy of peaceful parenting and radical unschooling that I wanted a radio show to be able to expound in great detail on these theories and philosophies based on freedom. But it's a lot of letting go for people. So I'm really happy to be here to do this. We also talked about last week on letting go of controlling your partner. That's definitely a big one. And also living what you preach, extending this type of philosophy to not only your children, but everybody in your lives, from your mother-in-law to friends to neighbors. But that's a lot of work for some people. So I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you on this peaceful journey. So halfway through the show tonight, we're going to be taking calls. So if you want to jot down the number, it's 718-717-8296. So please call in with any questions. I'm happy to help. And if you have any feedback on something you learned from the show or anything you've applied to your own life, please leave a comment on my blog or YouTube or anywhere you'd like. And also friend me on Facebook. I have two different pages. I have a personal page that you could subscribe to, and also an author page where I post a lot of interesting articles and videos on peaceful parenting and related topics. So one thing I want to do every week, which I found awesome that there was enough information in the news about it, was peaceful parenting in the news. And one thing my husband found this week, and I was really grateful for, was a gold medalist in the Winter Olympics, Jamie Anderson. This girl is amazing. They interviewed her, the Today.com interviewed her, and said, what does it take to raise an Olympian? Asking her mother. And in the case of Jamie Anderson, who's 23, the first woman to win gold in the slopestyle snowboarding, her mom took an unconventional approach. She had no traditional schooling, and the focus was on outdoor activities and following one's spirit. Now, that really is not typical. I mean, I think a lot of people think that if your kids are going to be in the Olympics, it takes extreme discipline, and everything we've seen, you see the parent and coach pushing children and pushing these teens to succeed. But what happens if somebody's really internally motivated and truly wants to be doing these things? Well, when you don't use force, self-discipline is even stronger than outward force or discipline. So this girl is the perfect example of that. And the mother says that she wanted her children, she wanted them to be like children. She wanted them to play outside, run and jump, and not sit inside at a desk all day, said Lauren Anderson, who raised her kids in South Lake Tahoe, California. She says they got to be free, building their bodies, protecting their spirits and minds, and not being pushed or pressured. Lauren homeschooled her 8 kids while running a lawn mowing business on the side, but the emphasis was not on academics. She told Today.com during an interview at the P&G family home in the Olympic Park, there wasn't a big push for them to read and write and do arithmetic. I wanted them to learn how to get along and let life be the teacher. Character building was more important than academics. Wow, I read that and I was so excited that this is becoming more mainstream. This peaceful parenting approach is starting. What somebody posted on my wall today that it was trending, and I find that so exciting that this isn't being looked at as strange or weird or even radical anymore, that people are really seeing the benefits of this. And to have this girl in the Olympics, you know, having been raised this way and being a gold medal winner, it's awesome. And Jamie, the actual athlete, said to Today.com that she plans to raise her own kids in the same way, 100%. And she says, it brings tears to my eyes how much I feel that same vibration that kids should be kids. I think it's sad how much time kids have to spend inside nowadays, and I have so much gratitude for how my mom and dad chose to raise my family. Jamie said while giving her mom a shoulder rub after she won the gold, I look now at how successful we all are, and I believe what my mom says, that kids are naturally driven to learn and progress. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, and thank you, Lauren, for being amazing advocates in proof that this works, that this is an option. And the more people see this, the more peace that will spread and the more freedom children will be allowed. So another aspect of the show is I want you guys to just get to know me and get a glimpse inside of what our lives look like as an unschooling family, as a family who's living in a partnership paradigm instead of a peaceful parenting paradigm, instead of an authoritarian paradigm, One aspect I want to share about is my 2 older kids. I think when the way we were raised, we had sleepovers with our friends. I remember going to my friend's house for an overnight or 2, but because of school, we could never stay for more than a night or 2. And I kind of thought that was normal, but it really isn't very natural when it comes to, preteens or teens. In fact, when you look at unschoolers who have freedom and who don't need to be in school, the time that they spend with their friends is a lot longer. Like my son Devin is in Vermont right now. He's skiing and snowboarding with his friend, and he's staying there for maybe about 10 days. And my daughter Tiffany, who is 12, went out to New York City for 2 weeks to spend time with her best friend, who happens to be turning 16 years old this week. Isn't it fascinating that a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old could be best friends? That's something that would never, ever happen with a child in school. In fact, I can remember when I lived with my father, there was a neighbor girl. In fact, we've recently connected on Facebook. I was 15 and she was only 10. And we had so much in common. She was such a sweet girl. And I used to my father wouldn't even let me hang out with her because she was so much younger. He used to shame me and say, why on earth are you hanging out with this girl? And for some reason, she was really mature and we had so much fun. We liked the same music, but I was not allowed to hang out with her because people thought it was so strange because she was so much younger. And do you remember being in school yourselves with people that you potentially could have been friends with, but either they were made fun of or you were made fun of because you were in a different grade? Unschoolers and children who live in freedom don't have these kind of barriers. They don't have age segregation like we dealt with. So my daughter's best friend is 16, and they are 2 peas in a pod. She's exploring New York City and taking all kinds of fun classes, dance classes. They came together through a common interest, which makes so much more sense, doesn't it, for people to connect through common interest than the fact that they're the same age in the same class. They both love the band One Direction. And Tiffany and Zoe just, oh my goodness, they love anything to do with the band. They actually went to see them on Good Morning America, and it's a really cool story. A lot of the people that went to see One Direction on Good Morning America got there the night before and started waiting in line. I guess it was one of the biggest performances that Good Morning America ever had. And I think Zoe and Tiffany and other people that went with them, their mother and other friends, I think they got there at 2 a.m, and they still didn't get in. And they were leaving really sad and depressed that they never made it into the show. And a gentleman came up to my daughter and said, here, I have a ticket if you want it. And that doesn't surprise me because my daughter Tiffany is such a powerful creator. I swear this child she gets amazing things. She gets whatever she wants. And hearing that, I love saying these kind of things and letting it trigger in people what it triggers, because when you hear that term that she gets whatever she wants, what comes to your mind? I think a lot of negative, doesn't it? Like being spoiled or entitled or something. But what I mean by that is that this child, she has such a tenacity, she has such a focus, she has such a drive to accomplish anything she sets her mind to. So did not surprise me that somebody came up to her and gave her a ticket. In fact, she talked to one of the people that worked there and got all of her friends in, and they were really close to the stage. So a sad situation turned into an extremely happy one for my daughter and her friends. And I'm grateful to my good friend Kathy, who really nurtures these girls' passions for this band. So One Direction being Tiffany's passion, it's the nucleus of her learning. And when it comes to unschooling, I think that's an important aspect to realize, that although we don't break life down into subjects, whatever my daughter's or any of my kids' interests are, it's the nucleus of their learning. And if you were to break it down into subjects, you would see that it touches on every subject: math, English, science, anything traditionally focused on for learning. I bring in as many resources as possible for Tiffany to learn and grow from based on this interest. So the first book that Tiffany ever read was a 300-page biography on the band One Direction. And she read it from cover to cover. Just because she read later than the average child in school doesn't mean that she started with the most simple, basic reading. No, she went from not reading anything really until right to reading books designed for teenagers. So the same with my son Devin. He learned to read through playing video games and being surrounded with the written word. We would buy him magazine subscriptions based on his interests, and he went from not reading fluently to reading the Harry Potter series. So children never fall behind who read later, from the experience of me working with families. So that's interesting to realize. Everything you thought about learning is more than likely false, is one thing that I like to share. And please call in with questions, because I love to bust the myths of true learning and natural learning. Reading is a hard one for people, though. I like to compare it to like natural weaning, for example, that most people think by 6 months kids should wean. But anyone who's had a child and is following the natural process generally knows that weaning can happen anywhere from 6 months to 3 years, or even longer or earlier, depending upon the child. But natural reading is the same. There's a wide range of normal for natural reading, and it's anywhere between ages 5 to 15. There's a 10-year window, depending upon when the child's ready, when their brain is ready, when everything lines up. And for somebody not needing to be on somebody else's agenda or somebody else's schedule, that makes a lot of sense. I've known kids to read at all different ages, but people have a really hard time accepting how normal that is. But in my experience, my kids, Devin and Tiffany, know how to read wonderfully and know how to write wonderfully. They're 12 and 14. Ivy is in the process of learning. She's 9. I have no fears or worries about her. Interesting thing is Orion's 6, and he's already doing a little bit differently than the other kids. He's already showing signs of learning to read a lot earlier. So again, everybody's on a different time frame for these things. So Devin, what is he doing right now? Again, he's in Vermont with his friends skiing. He's been a skier for a couple of years, and he tried snowboarding out. He sent me a message. I was wondering how he did, because snowboarding is a lot different than skiing. It's pretty hard on your body. I tried it, and I've never been so sore in my life as the next morning. You fall so many times, and you fall pretty hard. But all right, well, I'm getting a call, so let me take this. Hello, welcome. Welcome to Try This at Home. This is Dayna.
Hi, Dayna. This is Desert Hawk.
Hi, how are you?
I heard you on the show. You were talking about teaching your children based on an interest or a certain interest.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the basic questions people have been asking for a long time is, who are we, where are we from, and where are we going?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Are you asking me how I address that with my children?
No, not necessarily. I'm curious what direction you would go if you had a choice.
Well, it's interesting because I don't necessarily I mean, my kids know that my personal views, I think I'm more spiritual than I am religious, but my kids have a lot of different resources to form their own opinions based on these kind of questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation. You got, I mean, if I had kids, I would absolutely not put them in the public school system. I agree with that big time.
Why wouldn't you put them in public school? What would your reasoning be?
My reasoning, probably because they don't tell the truth, for number one.
Right.
Number two would be a lot of the peer pressure is self-destructive. That would be number two.
Right.
I could go on, but I think that's enough.
Okay, well, I totally agree. Thank you very much.
Well, no, I mean, that's just how it is. What I'm trying to figure out is what is the objective? Here we are on this planet. Where do we go?
I guess I'm not really clear on your question. I'm so happy to engage with you and answer, but I'm just not clear on what you're just
Dayna.
asking just really roughly.
Dayna.
And
Your name's Dayna, right?
Dayna.
Yeah. You can call me Desert Hawk or you can call me Terry. What is the objective on this planet? From here on out, what is the objective?
Right.
Basically, where do we go from here?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I know some things. There's things I know and there's things I don't know.
Same here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no doubt. It's a conundrum.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting though, isn't it? Do you get excited at that prospect of not knowing? Are you comfortable in the question of not knowing?
No, actually I don't, because I know where this is leading. I don't get excited because I look at history and I can see where things are going.
Well, see, I think that might be where I might differ from some people. I love to see the world as a really hopeful place. I guess I'm more optimistic than most. I don't want my children to think that they're in a world of doom and gloom and to need to fear the future. I know that part of my existence is to create my reality, and it's based on my thoughts and what I create for my family. And I know that what I'm creating is something really joyful and modeling peace. So I think I definitely am excited and hopeful for the future, especially when so much change is happening. I mean, these kind of awareness perspectives are growing rapidly. And although I totally understand where you're coming from, I definitely don't share that fearful, pessimistic perspective. Well, but thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
You bet, Dayna.
Thank you.
Just look at history. We'll talk to you later.
Take care. Thank you for calling. Bye. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm so interested to connect with all kinds of people, no matter who's listening and whatever they have to share. I totally get the fearful place that a lot of people are coming from, and I think it's different when you have kids. Something happens. I think I definitely lived in a more kind of doom and gloom mentality before children, because I think that's the culture and the mentality we're raised in. This is part of freedom, is breaking out of that mindset, breaking out of the fear-based attitude that we're headed for destruction and everything around every corner is based on history repeating itself. Well, we can create a new history. We can create a new beginning with our children by taking risks and stepping out of fear and moving more towards trust. Okay, I'm getting another call. Hold on one moment. Hello, this is Dayna. Thanks for calling in. This is Try This at Home.
Hi, I'm trying it at home. This is Mike from Salt Lake City.
How are you, Mike?
So, I'm doing really good. I'm glad you have the show. I've listened to you a couple of times. I think you got your eye on the ball. I think you know what you're doing. And you're willing to learn, right, as you go.
Sure, yeah. How can I help you tonight? What question do you have for me?
The question I have for you is this. How do you incorporate really difficult emotional experiences into a learning, positive experience, a death or a death of an animal? I mean, do you take them out and bury them? Do you explain it? Yeah.
That's such a good question. I've approached it in different ways, and I don't know which way is right or wrong. As my kids have gotten older, they've pulled in their own ideas. So let me just talk to you a little bit about that. I remember when my kids were really young, we did have a member of the family die, and I wasn't sure how to approach it with my kids. And I ordered this great book called Lifetimes, and it really just broke it down into a perspective of that everything is a lifetime. And my kids really understood that perspective that I shared. We recently this year, some people might think this is a little morbid, but we had 3 bunnies, and they weren't necessarily pets. I guess they kind of were, but they were outside, so they were more like farm animals. And one of them died, and my son Devin said to me, "Mom, can I dissect it? Can I take it? Can I skin it?" And I learned through learning about homesteading and this interest in how to tan a hide. And I would really love to try it. I would love to dissect the rabbit and break it down and learn about its inner workings. And at first I was kind of mortified. I said to my husband, I said, "Oh my gosh, he wants to do this with our bunny. Like, I don't know how I feel about it." And I talked to the other kids. We kind of sat down as a family and discussed it, and the other kids were okay with it. So I said, "All right, you can do it, but, go out in the woods and, I don't really want to see it myself. I'm a little grossed out by it." So the kids that wanted to experience it went out with him, and he had a manual or something that he had with him as a resource. And he literally dissected this rabbit, and he buried it. He respected it very much, and he tanned the hide, and he still has it. And so this was an amazing learning experience for him, and it was a way that he said he was honoring this animal in our lives. And so that's just one experience that I've had as a parent with a life-learning son, respecting his choices. And I was so glad that we respected that with him. So,
well, that's excellent. I'm proud of you for doing that, because in the end, if and when our technologically marvelous civilization either collapses or contracts, those are going to be the important things. You can't be afraid. You're going to have to respect the life, but you probably won't want to pick up anything dead after that time. You want to kill it
Right.
yourself. And I'm sure he didn't find any, Easter eggs in it either, did he?
No, he did not. He did not. But he learned a lot through the experience, and I was proud of myself for getting over my own squeamish fear, because sometimes we really have to look past our fears and honor what our children want to do and really see things through their eyes. So I was grateful for that. But thank you.
It was a learning experience for you too, correct?
It was because I was really glad that I trusted him, and I think that is every single time I trust my kids. I'm always glad that I did, because sometimes we are guided by fear. No matter how evolved we think we are, we still have conditioning to work through and still have fears that are kicked up. So I'd like to think I get better and better, but there's still those moments where fear sometimes is on the forefront. But, well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for initiating this for me to be able to talk about it. Do you have any other questions for me?
Well, no, just go off on that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Call again. Take care. Yeah, that was one experience. I did actually post about that if anyone's interested in seeing the photos of Devin's skinned rabbit. Ironically, the rabbit's name was Lucky. He was not so lucky, but I guess he was lucky, isn't he? Because he was honored in his death. And I would like to think that Lucky would like to be a learning experience for children. I thought it was kind of cool, actually, because I remember when I was forced and manipulated and threatened if I didn't dissect whatever creature it was in science class. I don't even remember now. I think it was a grasshopper early on, and then later it was a cat, and I hated it. It just wasn't me. I definitely don't think that we all need to do the same things in life and experience the same things to benefit from these different things. And schools think that they need to force everybody to do the same thing to learn, but just like this experience with Devin, the same experience for me was really traumatic to be forced to do that, where for him, he loved it. He learned so much and he gained what he needed to. And I cannot say it was the same experience for anyone in school that I knew. So he did it by his own accord. He desired to do it. He researched. One thing that's amazing about children who live with a life learning principle behind them is they know how to learn. And that's something that is shut off in a lot of us, I think, growing up is, we kind of confuse learning with something unpleasant, because most of the time we are forced or coerced to be focused on or studying or tested on things that don't interest us. So we associate learning with something negative, and once we get older, anything that remotely looks like that, we just tend to run away from, where our kids have a very positive association with learning. In fact, they look at learning like breathing, and it isn't separate from life. It's just part of being human. So my kids know how to learn. Devin knows how to find answers. I don't even know exactly which resources he used. I think he did a YouTube video to look up how to dissect an animal, and he had some books and references that he used also, but he did it perfectly well. I said, how did you know where to cut and what to do? He said, I did it perfectly. I knew exactly what to do. And he said, I took out the kidneys and the bladder and the liver, and he was showing the other kids, and my son Orion, who was 5 at the time, was fascinated because he looks up to his big brother so much. He loves Devin. They're buddies. So he learned a lot from the experience too. Okay, so another thing Devin's really into this week, just to share with you, is, he's in Vermont right now, but before he left, he said, I really want to get into leather working. It's amazing how one interest definitely leads to another on this path. And so I said, all right, well, we ordered a huge bulk off eBay of leather, and the first big bulk of leather we got was kind of crap. It was all these tiny scraps, and cost me $40 to get all this, and it was a waste. So, hey, we learned so much to really make sure what we're buying on eBay, because I didn't even really think to look at all the exact sizes. So when we ordered the second time, we knew that we had to get bigger sizes, and Devin ordered a bunch. He saved some money, so he sold a couple things at his Etsy shop. He makes cutting boards and he makes knives through his blacksmithing business. So he sold a bunch of things to get some leatherworking tools, and he said, can I make a spot in the cellar for like a little leatherworking shop? That's one aspect of this life, is when you're raising free-thinking entrepreneurs, you really need to learn to share your space. And we turned our woodshed, which really just was kind of this trashed place just to store a bunch of stuff. We turned that into Devin's forge, his blacksmithing shop. I didn't mind doing that because we were able to get rid of a bunch of stuff. But in the cellar, this was different because this was my space for my conference supplies and my crafting stuff. So I said, yeah, let's find a place to put both of our things so we're both happy. And we worked together and found space for my stuff and turned this huge desk area into a place for his leatherworking. So you really need to facilitate your children on their learning path. You have to be willing to be flexible and willing to compromise and to work in partnership and to see your home as a workshop of your children's passions and interests, and not just a museum of their things, of your things. I think, growing up, a lot of us and a lot of people today, they just look at their homes as these sterile places that need to be kept spotless and have all their things laid out perfectly, because if anybody stops by, you have to make sure that everything looks perfect, because we know that underneath it all, it's really not. But as long as you put up that front, no one will ever know the truth. We're getting into a lot of stuff there talking about that. I just remember growing up with my grandmother. She was really religious, and she, not always though, when she was younger, she was actually in the first women's motorcycle club in New Hampshire. It's pretty cool. She was quite a rebel. I have pictures of her on her motorcycle. And she was quite a rebel herself, and she made a lot of change and fought for women's rights. And then she got older and she found religion, and it kind of changed her a little bit. She became really concerned with the way things looked and not so worried about the way things really were. And I just think that a lot of us had that modeled to us. Now, that's something I'm trying to break away from. I want my home to be a comfortable nest for my family. I want my kids to always have a place where they can feel comfortable, and I try not to worry so much about the way it looks, but I have to admit, I like organization, and I like my home to be clean, but I don't want to spend every hour cleaning because I have 4 kids here, and I need to facilitate their learning, and I want to live happily. So it is a balance between cleaning, organizing, and really celebrating the space as a workshop of our interests. I'm a work in progress, but I like to think I have it balanced most of the time. So what else did we do this week? Ivy and Orion and I, now again, Ivy's 9 and Orion's 6, we made a volcano, just like on the Brady Bunch. Remember that episode? That's so fake. The volcanoes don't erupt like that, really. It's just vinegar and baking soda with a little bit of red food coloring, but I remember that episode fondly. And we made one of those, and we made a model solar system. And we also purchased a couple weeks ago a really good microscope, which I've never really owned before. And yeah, it works awesome. And we looked at a bunch of grains of salt. And one thing I want to point out, that even though we live life as though school doesn't exist and we don't go by any kind of school agenda or curriculum, this does not mean that we can't purchase or enjoy resources that are schooly. I think that a lot of people that are unschooling, they tend to think that unschooling means anti-school and anything remotely looking like that you need to stay away from. But hell, that's limiting. That's not our life. We want the whole world to learn from and grow from. This includes things that might look educational or schooly. I'm not going to keep myself in some box and reject some things and accept some. No, we wanted to. I love that kind of thing. I've always loved science. And I said, I want to get these things. I want to check them out. And if the kids want to join me on this journey, then great. And Ivy was more interested than Orion with the volcano. He thought it was cool when it erupted, but Ivy really liked to. We assembled it together with a plaster casting, and it was neat. I started to read a little bit about it, the pamphlet that came in with the volcano, but the kids kind of lost interest after a while. But we enjoyed the whole process anyway. Looking at the salt under the microscope was really cool. Joe and I had, I think, more fun than the kids looking at it, but I really want my kids to know that learning never ends, that just because you hit a certain age doesn't mean that you should ever stop. You should always keep going and growing and experiencing as much as you can. So, yeah, use the world as your classroom, even these schooly things. If your kids enjoy it and you enjoy it, there's no reason why you can't purchase some things like this. So, again, the lines are open for any kind of calls. If you have a question for me, please call in to number 718-717-8296. Be sure to check out my website and my Facebook pages and join me to ask questions or connect. This week I got a lot of questions. I thought I'd address some of them here. I have a lot of people that listen to the show, but not necessarily live. They listen after the fact on YouTube. So let's see. Somebody asked me, a woman named Renan asked, do you think there's a place in the unschooling movement for teachers? I think this is a really great question. In fact, I have a coaching business, and I have a regular client who's a teacher, and she's an amazing woman. She doesn't have kids yet. And when we first started our coaching relationship, I think she was really down on the fact that once she started learning about partnership with children, as opposed to the authoritarian paradigm, I think this is really common for a lot of people, but you start to see abuse or disrespect that you didn't really notice before. It's like the veil is lifted, and all of a sudden you're seeing things as they are. And it can be really depressing when you're immersed in that dynamic every day in and day out, and you see children being punished, and you see people trying to control behavior and not focusing on the needs under the behavior. In fact, this woman was really distraught and even pondered leaving her profession. Now, a lot of unschooling parents were teachers, and it's one of the reasons that we come to this life and I even went to college to be a preschool teacher, and human development was something I was interested in, and a lot of us who are focused on children and are really interested in learning come to this life and learning about it, and it makes so much sense that humans are meant to learn, and it should never be forced. So this woman, my client, had a really hard time in her profession, so we talked a lot about it and helping her cope with it, explaining to her that she could make a huge difference in her school, in her world, with this new enlightened perspective. But she didn't want to be in the position of being against everybody. So how do you work in partnership with a new awareness with people who are living in another paradigm, with people who are still disrespecting kids, not intentionally? I think that's the whole thing. You really have to understand that a lot of people that come to this life get really angry. You step onto this awareness of partnership and you get mad at people. You see people in the store yelling at their kids or treating them disrespectfully and demanding obedience. And a lot of anger is kind of birthed within us, not only for how we're seeing children be treated, but for how we were raised. I think in addition to being in this new awareness, all this to us, we have these feelings of injustice that were now validated, that we instinctually felt on some level as kids. needing to raise our hand to go to the bathroom and being told no, we couldn't, and all the injustice. I remember a teacher forcing me to blow my nose in front of the class. I mean, those are just, they may seem like minor things, but all these little injustices and disrespectful gestures I always knew were wrong. And you're told to squash them down for so many years, and you're told that it's for your own good, and you really lose touch with your instinct and your inner knowing after so many years of being told not to trust yourself because everybody else knew what was best and you're wrong and feeling this way. So in that place of learning more about this, I think we all go through a process of anger and frustration and even crying for the injustice and abuse that we knew was there and we were told wasn't. There's nothing more crazy making than feeling something instinctually and being told that your feelings are wrong. And that is the overtone of how parenting is in our world today. No wonder so many people are having such a hard time with everything. So what I'm getting at is when we first step into this life, yes, that process is so normal, and we learn to treat children with more respect, and we do it almost rebelliously and proudly, loudly in public. I can remember the most rebellious act when my children were so young is to say, yes, you can have that. Yes, we can do this, proudly in front of other parents. I loved the rebel side of me that was bucking the system and going against what most people were doing. Like, I value you. I will not punish you. I love you so much. And it was almost like a protest to my own upbringing and to all the adults around me. That was part of my process, and it's really normal. Now, I think you go kind of further down this path and you realize it doesn't really feel good to judge other parents. It really doesn't. And in fact, I came to understand that everybody's doing the best they can with what they know, that just because I may have researched this and I might be onto this new awareness that not everybody has, and everybody else loves their kids just as much as I do. They just don't know any other way. And sometimes people are scared. They're scared to walk the road less traveled. I mean, you know how hard it is to be raised as a woman in our culture. We're just raised to please everybody around us, and our own value lies in what other people think of us, that if other people approve of us, then we can love ourselves. And so we're trained, and this is kind of beaten into us emotionally over the years. And you know, we get such hypocritical messages in our culture today. Like, all the commercials on TV are like, be yourself, be different. But then, oh my gosh, if you are, you're laughed at or made fun of or told you're wrong. And so it's just, again, crazy making. But assuming positive intent from everybody around me and connecting with people based on a common interest instead of our differences has proven to be so much more joyful way to live. I mean, I think the first couple of years of really understanding or kind of taking on the label as an unschooler, I really loved, I think that it felt different in a rebellious way. But the more I came to it, I think a lot of people that do unschool love that. They love the grassroots movement. They don't want it to become mainstream. I mean, I've even got criticism, tons of criticism from people who are unschooling on this path. You know, that I've brought this to the mainstream media, like sharing about this. People say, we don't want other people doing this. We want to do it. This is our movement. Like, people want to feel special doing something so different, so outside the box, that if more people are doing this, then they don't feel as special. Now, to me, that isn't the best of intentions. I mean, we want to be doing this to make a more peaceful world. I mean, that's my intention and my mission, is to bring more peace into people's lives, not only their children's. Like, I think some people want that for their children, but they also want to feel radical and special themselves. Now, I just don't necessarily personally find that to be as fulfilling to me as bringing this idea to anyone, saying that you can do this, whether you have kids in school, no matter what background you have, no matter what your culture, your ethnicity, your religion, whatever, this is possible for you. In fact, I feel like 50 years from now, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, it'll just be one choice of many. You know, you're going to private school, public school, you're going to unschool or homeschool. It's not going to be viewed as radical anymore. But for me, in a place of being joyful and happy, that being angry and against everybody else, every other parent in my town, for example, or in my area, felt really bad. For one, it was judging other people. And what is that modeling to my kids, where every single time I see another parent interacting with their kid, I'm judging and going, can you believe how mean that parent is? I mean, what kind of insight or awareness is that really modeling for your children? I don't want my children to learn judgment for other people constantly. I mean, I think there's a fair amount of balanced critical thinking and so forth that I share. We pull out situations saying, maybe how could that person have handled that more peacefully? But to be in a place of keeping myself in this box so different from everybody else is not helping the world at all. So working with this teacher, who was really suffering in that situation, I was trying to help her see that through opening her heart to understanding that she's unique in her thinking and she's evolved in her thinking, and not everybody is in that place of understanding children in the same way, but the way that we make a difference in other people's lives is to be understanding and peaceful and modeling that through our love and connection with other people. That you're modeling disrespect and judgment and hatred and anger by judgment and by this negative energy that you have toward other people. That does not help the world, nor does it model for your children that the world is a beautiful, peaceful place if you create it to be. So sharing this insight with her, I mean, I think I could apply that to a lot of people listening, that you don't have to keep yourself in this box. In fact, if you have an inner drive to help other people and you need to model peace, you need to model respect and kindness to everybody around you. And I know it's possible. So that's a journey that I've gone on myself. So yes, I do think there's a place for teachers in the unschooling movement. But for some, it's going to be more of an emotional journey than for others. But my goodness, yeah, we need teachers that are in awareness about natural learning and respect and peaceful parenting. In fact, that is hugely important in this whole movement. So, okay, let's see, another question. Sorry, I was taking a sip of my water. A friend sent me these awesome glass straws. Have you guys ever seen these glass straws? They're awesome. I thought they'd be really breakable, but they're not. My friend invented a product called the Cocoa Jack, and it opens. David Goodman is his name. He's my friend on Facebook, and he opened a business opening these like coconuts, machine that opens coconuts. And anyone that's tried to open a Thai young coconut knows it's really hard. So he invented an awesome gadget to do that, and he sent it along to me to try out along with some awesome glass straws, and I have used them ever since. So thank you, David, so much for that. Okay, another question I have. This is from Lisa Freeman. She asks me, do you ever have some not so proud mommy moments? And if so, how do you personally handle the guilt? I'm a perfectionist. Well, Lisa, hi, I'm Dayna, and I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. It is challenging. I think a lot of people think that perfectionism is like a good quality. In fact, it's admired in our culture, but it is more of a hindrance and a problem than anything, because you know what? You can't be perfect. You're human. You are not perfect. So trying to be something that is impossible to be is frustrating, and you'll never be happy in that space. Brené Brown is an author who writes extensively on perfectionism. I love her work, and if you have a chance to check out any of her books, one of her videos went viral recently, or not recently, I think last year on the TED Talk. It was about vulnerability, and her work is so awesome. And she wrote a book, I forget what it's called, something about being perfect. I'm sorry, I lost my memory of the title of it, but if you do a search for Brené Brown and for perfectionism, you'll find her work. She's awesome. So do I ever have any not so proud mommy moments? Well, yes, I do. You don't see those highlighted on my blog, do you? But I do. And I can share a couple of them with you just to let you know that I am so not perfect, that I strive to have peaceful moments with my kids, and most of the time I succeed. But homegirl isn't perfect, and I mess up a lot of times too. So especially if I'm tired or hungry. Like I have a low blood sugar thing, and if I go too long without eating, I get really grumpy and really short. In fact, I have to make sure I eat before the show, and I'm really nervous before I do a radio show, so I have to kind of force myself to eat, because I know if I don't, I'll be totally grumpy, and you guys don't want to listen to me all grumpy, I don't think. So last week, Tiffany, before she went to New York, said, Mom, I want to learn about makeup. I want to wear some makeup, and will you show me how to wear some? Now, I don't wear a lot of makeup. Generally, I pretty much just do eyeliner, mascara, and pressed powder sometimes. I know the guys listening aren't going to care about this, but hear me out. So I said, all right, yeah, let's go to CVS, and I'll pick out some makeup that I know about and help you with. So I was with Tiffany, who's 12, and Ivy, who's 9, And Ivy was kind of just dragged along for the ride. And I go into CVS with Tiff, and I'm walking along the aisles where they're trying to find the best eyeliner and mascara, and we're discussing the different kinds, and we pick out the perfect stuff after 20 minutes, and I'm exhausted. We had just come back from shopping for a prom, or not a prom dress, but a dress for a dance she's going to while she's in New York, and I was tired and hungry, and it was late. So I'm in CVS at the line. Finally, we picked up the makeup. I'm standing there exhausted. Okay, let's pay for it. And there's little Ivy, like right in front of me, looking at the candy. And she's saying, Mom, what is this? What is this Hubba Bubba, like, chewy tube candy or whatever it was? And she was talking to me, and I was just like, Ivy, no, we're not going to get, no, not today. I was so tired. I just so didn't have the patience or the energy to even look at what she was doing. I just shut her right down. Like, no, because she, as far as the girls go, Tiffany's really intense and really sensitive. And when she wants something, you hear it. Like, she's loud and we talk about it and everything's such a big deal. But to Ivy, she's a young, quiet little girl like I was. And if I say something to her, she generally just kind of is quiet and listens, and she doesn't complain much, and she's just a little sweetheart. So I kind of shut her down and didn't even think anything of it. I just wanted to get out of there. And so we were leaving and we went out into the parking lot. She looked up at me and said, Mom, why wouldn't you listen to me? Why couldn't I look at the candy? I have my own money and I wanted to buy some. And I looked in her eyes and my heart like broke. I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but to a mother who values her children like this and really wants to allow them to feel honored, respected, and loved, my heart broke. Like, I realized what I had done to her, that I had totally ignored her, shut her down, didn't even let her talk. I felt so bad. I feel like crying telling you. I don't know why. It was just emotional because I looked in her eyes and she was just so hurt. And I said, I'm so sorry, sweetie. And I said, Tiff, can you start the car? I'm going to go in with Ivy. So I took her back in and I looked at her and I said, I'm so sorry, babe. Show me what you were going to show me. And I kind of snapped out of my grumpy, bitchy mode and listened and tuned into her. And I said, okay, let's get all those. And, you know, I paid for it with my money and said, don't worry about it. I'm happy to get it for you and save your money. And we went in the car and she said, thanks. But I mean, you can't beat yourself up. I think that's one of the things with perfectionism. It's one of the things that brings us to this awareness in life because we so want to give our kids a great life of respect and peace, but we're not really beings who can live that 24/7, no matter how enlightened or evolved we think we are. You know, we can't. But the difference in this perspective is when we do make a mistake or we act in a way that's less than perfect, to be able to like address it and call it out on ourselves and apologize to our kids. I think that models even more than peace sometimes, you know, by just saying, I'm so sorry, sweetie. I didn't mean to ignore you. I'm hungry. And she said, I know. And I said, I didn't mean to. I said, next time, just, you know, I want to say to her, next time be like Tiff and scream and say, I want this. And I'll be more, it's like the intense kids grab my attention more. And sometimes the sweet little sensitive silent ones kind of go under the radar sometimes when you have so many kids. I got 4 kids, man. There's a lot going on. But Ivy just reminds me that although she's not the loudest, her needs are just as important. And I really need to tune in to those, you know, Ivy and Orion, who are the quieter of the two and the ones that really ask for the least. And I think because they're 3rd and 4th children, they're kind of used to waiting, and it's a little bit different. I don't know whether it's nature or nurture, but it just is. So anyway, so that's one of my recent not so good mommy moments. And I think being able to apologize and share with other mothers that when we make a mistake and we screw up, I think holding on to the guilt is the worst part of it. You know, like I haven't really felt the guilt since it happened until now I'm telling you, and I'm like reliving it all, but we can't. We're not perfect. And sometimes we have moments where I have moments where I treat Joe less than respectfully. He came to bed last night super late. I don't even know what time it was. He's such a night owl. It was in the morning actually. And he came to bed and gave me a kiss and said, I love you. And he started telling me about the blog entry he was writing and somebody else he was corresponding with. And I rolled over and said, I don't care right now. And then I rolled back over and it hit me like guilty. Like, what? That's so mean. Like, I need to like be there for him. And I don't know why I said it. I was just tired. And so, you know what? I try to be peaceful as much as possible, but if I'm tired or hungry, it's not always easy. So I apologized to him and I opened my heart and I listened, and he said, no, I'm sorry. It was, 5 a.m. or whatever. You're not in a place to listen to it, but he was so excited. So it's not only with my children. I have some not so proud partner moments too. But a really great thing is my husband has moments too where he's not perfect, and my children have moments too where they have a difficult time and act in ways that aren't ideal, because none of us are perfect. But how we model what we do after those moments is everything. That is when we model the imperfection that we are, that the perfection can really be nurtured, because we are perfect in our imperfection. So the next time Orion was being grumpy to Ivy and she wasn't really paying attention to him earlier this week, I remember her saying, sorry, Orion, what was that you're saying? I wasn't paying attention. Like, she treats him respectfully and Joe treats me respectfully, like after the fact. So be forgiving with each other and don't hold on to guilt. So you know what? This life's too short to hang on to guilt and dwelling on this perfectionism. So, okay, moving on. Thank you for that question, Lisa, by the way, and for offering me an opportunity to talk more about my not so perfect moments. Hey, maybe I'll share my worst mommy moment of the week if that'll help anybody every week. You never know. Maybe I'll work that in. Okay, Wendy asks me, if your children wanted to go to school, would you let them? I totally would let them. I would support them. This unschooling philosophy, peaceful parenting philosophy, is not anti-school. It can be, personally. There's a lot I don't like about public school or even private school, but there's no agenda that comes before my children, ever, and what my children want. I might have the strongest opinions about animal rights or the earth, but when it comes to my children, I would never put those things before my children's desires and needs and individuality. So if my kids came to me and said they wanted to go to school, I would support it and do everything I could to make it the best, most peaceful, free experience for them. I honestly could never see my children wanting to go to school. We've talked about it. And the injustice, I don't think that they would even endure for one day. They've never been treated disrespectfully to the degree they wouldn't even comprehend asking permission to go to the bathroom or for their basic human rights. It would seem absolutely ridiculous. So I don't think that they could handle being in that situation. People ask all the time, though, about socialization. Well, if your kids aren't in these group situations, how do they learn to socialize? And my children are involved in a lot of different situations, and my daughter, Tiffany, takes a dance class. But the great thing is you can be really selective. My daughter, Tiffany's dance teacher, I was really pleasantly surprised to find out that she was a childbirth student of mine. She's so peaceful and free and kind and loving. Do you know that there's so many aware, peaceful people all around us? And when you're on that vibration, you attract these people into your life experience. I didn't know that the teacher from the dance school that Tiffany started with recently either, and the only experience I ever had was my own experience in dance class when I was younger, and the teacher was so strict. And also, Tiffany watches that show Dance Moms. Have you ever seen this show? Oh my gosh. The woman's crazy. This Abby lady is such a mean teacher, and I had this thought in my head that, oh my gosh, what if this dance teacher's like this? And wow, what a difference. I met this woman, and so the girls were going up and hugging her, and she was complimenting them and being kind to them. And I said, you know what, we're not in alignment for having people that are disrespectful or cruel to kids in our reality. We honestly just attract the most perfect, evolved people. So as much as I focus on unjust treatment toward kids, and as much as I love to bring awareness to it, the reality is when you're in this space of love and peace and partnership, you really do attract a lot of people that are also living in that space, and you're able to bring, model this for people. So my area is really progressive. Even if my friends around here have kids in school, they apply this parenting at home. They respect their children. They don't put grades or the agenda of the institution most of the time before their family. You can have your foot in both worlds if you need to. This doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. In fact, not everybody is so fortunate to have both parents on board. I love to see when people are, and I think more and more people are coming to it, but more often than not, I work with parents who have, the father might be on, for this lifestyle and the mother might not be, or vice versa. So, how to find a happy medium where everybody's needs are met is so critical. I like to say to parents who call me and contact me really upset that the husband, for example, is really authoritarian and the mother is really peaceful, and should they feel so bad for their children when the husband's focused on behavior and punishes them? And I could get in the space to bash him and say how wrong it is and how cruel it is, but I know it's not going to bring more peace into the lives of other people, because you're just perpetuating this negativity instead to bring hopeful eyes and a hopeful voice and say that, hey, a child that's parented 50% of the time like this is better off than 90% of kids in our culture today who are parented by authoritarian parents. So you are already in the green. Your kids are already so much better off, and kids are so adaptable, and, you don't need to be consistently on the same page with parenting. I think if you're going to fight a lot about it, that's another whole thing. I think that becomes a problem if you can't control your partner into parenting this way, and if he criticizes you for parenting a different way, then you guys have some stuff to work out between you. But generally, kids are really, really great with being flexible. I mean, look at how many different teachers they have in school, or how different the grandparents are than the parents, and how different siblings are. Kids can go back and forth if you're both on two different pages for now. Somebody asked me, this is the last question I'll address. Let's see, there's so many different questions, I don't know which one to pick. Somebody asked me, Helene Elizabeth Dreimer asked me, what gives you the courage to keep being in the public eye when doing so can be challenging at times? I just think that I totally focus on the people that I help, and the fact that I just feel so grateful to be a voice in this movement to help spread more peace and love, that I know when people are judging me, like if somebody sees me on a talk show, they're getting just such a tiny glimpse as to what this philosophy is, and most of the time it's inaccurate. They're judging it based on something they think they know, but it isn't reality. Then I know no one's really judging me. They're judging an idea of me. That's not really who I am, so I can't take it personal. The same with any time I get any criticism online or elsewhere, I know that it's not based in who I really am. It's based on somebody else's ideas or thoughts about me, or beliefs or whatever. So if you have trust and confidence in yourself, then no one can ever damage you. No one could ever shake that. It all comes from that self-confidence in what you're doing. It's taken me years to get to this point. I have not always been like this, but I learned long ago that if I'm going to be a voice in this world for peaceful parenting and children's rights and unschooling, I needed to get a really, not a hard shell. I think the opposite is true. You need to get a soft heart, an open heart, to be understanding and loving to other people, and just know everyone's doing the best they can with what they know. And generally, if somebody's being mean or judging you or criticizing you, that it's really about them. I know you guys have heard that before. It's probably so played out to hear somebody say it, but really think about it. It truly is about them. And when you have a peaceful heart, all you can do is, when I hear somebody criticize something I've done, I just send them love, because I know that's truly who needs it. I don't need support necessarily in that moment. They do. So I just read something, and I try to stay away from message boards of shows that I've been on. Sometimes I can't help it because I love reading about helping people. But, when it gets really nasty or negative, I just turn away, and I just send love out to the world. So as corny as it sounds, you can't live that way, And the other thing that keeps me out there is my children. My kids are so proud of me. They love when I get, especially Devin and Tiff. The younger kids are kind of used to it. We've been doing this since they were born, but Devin and Tiffany, Devin's so proud. He loves it, and he tells me that he's so proud of the difference that we're making in this world by being strong voices and continuing to move forward no matter no matter what anybody says. So thank you guys for tuning in. Connect with me on Facebook. Send me questions. Have a wonderful night. Thank you guys. Love to everybody.